The state championship is so close you can almost taste it. Good evening and welcome to the WLEW Sports Network's presentation of The Strongside on Sports Radio 1021. I'm Clark Ramsey, your host, and joining me tonight is a true professional. He even has a license to prove it. Please welcome Dave Hansen.
Thanks, Clark. Happy to be here. How about them Bearcats? How about them Eagles? Some fantastic games this weekend.
Also in studio with us is the sports editor of the Huron Daily Tribune, Paul P. Adams.
We had two great teams, two great games to talk about. I can't wait for this program. I've been waiting for it since yesterday.
The Ugly Bearcats are on to the state semifinals as they took out New Lothrop in dramatic fashion. And the Deckerville Eagles are going to the state championship after yet another business-as-usual victory over Tri-Unity Christian.
Wow, those Bearcats, they had a tough task ahead of them, and they proved to everybody that they are for real.
And meanwhile, the Eagles, what more can be said? We knew this was a state championship defense. It almost pitched a shutout. Tri-Unity scored with less than a minute to go. Just another dominant defensive performance by Deckerville.
Tonight's edition of the Strong Side is presented by Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine, McCormick Motors of Pigeon, Rainey's Hunting Center, Thumb National Bank and Trust, Insure Healthcare Network, Better Health, Better Life. Left side or right side, you're listening to the Strong Side on the WLEW Sports Network. Left side or right side, you're listening to The Strong Side on Sports Radio 1021 with Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen from the Huron Daily Tribune. It's Paul P. Adams, as usual, and week number 12 of the regular season and postseason is upon us. And let's take you through the scores. The Deckerville Eagles in the state semifinals took out Tri-Unity Christian from Wyoming, the city, not the state, 36-6. They're posting a shutout until the last 26 seconds of that ball game. 36-6 moves Deckerville onto the state championship on Friday to take on Powers North Central High School from Spalding, Michigan, as they took out Pickford 62-22. We'll have more on those games later on in the program. In Division 7 playoffs, 11-player football, we had the Ugly Bearcats as your game of the week, taking on New Lothrop, and the Bearcats score 16 points in the second half to take the lead, and the final was 22-13 Bearcats over New Lothrop. And they take on the winner of TC St. Francis in Pewamo, Westphalia, and it was the Pirates who were prevailing over the Gladiators of Traverse City, 17-14 in a dramatic fashion in the fourth quarter, setting up an Ubly Pewamo Westphalia state semifinal in Mount Pleasant this coming Saturday.
A show of hands across the state who had Ubly and Pewamo Westphalia in the semifinals, because I don't think that was the one a lot of people were thinking about.
Probably snooze to you, that's about it.
Yeah, they are the only ones that had a chance. But yeah, what a game. We knew our Bearcats were good, but how good were they really? And I think they proved to everybody that they are one of the top teams in the state in Division 7.
But they are who we thought they were.
They
let them off the hook.
They are very, very good, and they were fun to watch this weekend.
And on that flip side, an eight-player, Powers North Deckerville. This is the one. I've been beating that dead horse since probably about week 7. We knew that this was going to happen.
In a show of hands,
you keep a dead horse around for 5 weeks.
Yes, I would keep him on ice just to.
Okay, that's enough.
And in a show of hands, I think just about everybody in the room would have had this as your final. So completely different.
It is funny though, Dave. A lot of people in the media. We're on the Tri-Unity bandwagon. Deckerville is statewide. I don't think was getting a lot of credit. Everybody knew about Powers North, but Tri-Unity had this amazing offense and a great quarterback. And I think a lot of people not from the Thumb area thought Tri-Unity was going to go into Deckerville and win this game, and they were sorely mistaken because they had not seen a defense like this.
Well, and besides that, there's no shame in Deckerville's offense either. I mean, they seem like they have a running clock on every team they play against, so I don't know how Tri-Unity Christian could have thought that they were going to walk into Deckerville's backyard and beat them down there. That's a place where nobody wins but Deckerville.
And, of course, our game of the week, which was this Saturday at 1 p.m. on Sports Radio 1021 with Clark Ramsey and Dave Hansen. It was the Ubly Bearcats on the road in Chesaning, Michigan, taking on the New Lothrop Hornets. And let's take a listen how that one sounded on Saturday afternoon. The road to Ford Field is just 2 checkpoints away. Today it's the Ubly Bearcats taking on the New Lothrop Hornets for the Division 7 Regional Championship. Good evening and welcome from Chesaning, Michigan. Now man in motion back to the right. And Ruddy at the quarterback going down to the end zone, and it's caught. Touchdown New Lothrop. Nathaniel Collinger with the reception from the 33 into the end zone. And New Lothrop strikes first. It is 6-0. And the kick from, that would be Mason Ruddy, is up, and the extra point is good. It is 7-0. New Lothrop over Ubley. 2:10 left in the first quarter. T formation for Mychek. It's hand off to his third back, and we have a fumble, and it's scooped up by New Lothrop at the 8-yard line. Birchmeyer hands it off, and it's actually going to be reversed and looking to pass. Ruddy throws downfield to the far sideline, and this one's picked up by Jonathan Brandel. Brandel intercepts him at the 40-yard line. A turnover for each now, and the Bearcats negate the damage as they intercept Ruddy, and they will start this drive at their own 40-yard line. 7:29 left in the second quarter. New Lothrop still leads by a touchdown, 7-0. Mychek under center, working off the left hash, pushing to his left, and Brandel breaks free to the 5. And touchdown, Ubley Bearcats. Jonathan Brandel converts on the handoff from the 26-yard line on 4th down and 1. And Brandel brings it back within 1 point with the 2-point conversion upcoming for the Bearcats. Brandel with a 26-yard scamper, 7-6. Ubley trying to even or take the lead right here. 2-point conversion falls incomplete. So Ubley still trails by 1 point, as it's New Lothrop with 7, Ubley with 6, with 4:52 left in the second quarter, but momentum swinging to the sideline of the Ubley Bearcats. Birchmeyer under center leads behind his offensive lineman, and we have touchdown New Lothrop. The Hornets score with 32 seconds before the half is over for the second time today. Ruddy's kick is up, and it is no good. Wide to the right. And so it remains a 7-point ball game with 32 seconds before the half is over. It's 13 for New Lothrop, 6 for the Ubley Bearcats. Birchmeyer hands it off to Ruddy. He's close to it. Fumbles, and it looks like Ubley may have it at the 36-yard line. And it is Ubley football. Mason Ruddy could not hang on to it at the end of his run as a swarm of white jerseys were there. It fell in front of him, and the Ubley Bearcats recover at their own 36-yard line with 10:52 left in the third quarter. 4th down and 5 to go for the Bearcats, and they may have to punt this one away. The punt into the wind, bounces at the 40 and comes to rest at the 33-yard line. Birchmeyer in the shotgun by himself. Ubley swarming to the ball. He scrambles for himself, and he is brought down before the first down marker way back at the 12-yard line. Darren Soul tracked him down in another turnover of downs for the Ubley defense in this game, and gives the ball back with no harm done in the second half yet. It's still 13-6, a one-possession ball game. And Mychek's going to keep it. He has the first down. He's on his feet at the 45. He breaks free. He has room to run. He's in New Lothrop at the 30 to the 25, and finally brought down at the 23-yard line. Matt Mychek needed 2 yards from the 35 to the 37, and he's finally brought down at the New Lothrop 23-yard line. A huge run for the junior play caller.
The Bearcats must capitalize on this drive.
And out to Derek Brown. He's in. Touchdown, Ubley. Derek Brown with the second score for the Ubley Bearcats comes in the fourth quarter with 9:06 remaining. Wing T to the left. Mychek rolling to the left to pass. He has a man open. It is caught.
Who else, Clark?
Jonathan Brandel. Jonathan Brandel brings it in, and the Ubley Bearcats are leading by 1 point. Ubley 14, New Lothrop 13, with 9:06 remaining in the fourth quarter. Empty backfield for Birchmeyer in the shotgun, rolling to his right to pass downfield, and it is incomplete. Incomplete at the 40-yard line. It was nearly caught by number 10, Ben Bigelow. It was thrown a little away from him and down. He had to go down for it. Incomplete, and a turnover of downs yet again for the Ubley defense. Gives the ball back to the Bearcats with a 1-point lead. 4:07 left in the fourth quarter. Looking back to pass. Mychek in trouble. Now lets it fly downfield. Has Jonathan Brandel caught. Jonathan Brandel down the field to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown Ubley. Jonathan Brandel brings in the pass from Matt Mychek on a third down in 19 from the 42-yard line. A 58-yard reception, and suddenly the Bearcats are leading by 7 points, 20-13, 2:52 left in the fourth quarter. Matt Mychek actually in the end around. He gets in. 2-point conversion is good. Ubley leads by 9 points. Critical 9 points. 22-13 with 2:52 left in the fourth quarter. Birchmeyer in the shotgun. Same formation, working off the left hash. Back to pass. Down to the corner of the end zone. This one is up, and it's intercepted. Intercepted by the Ubley Bearcats.
Number 22, Jonathan Brandel with the interception. With 1:56 left in the end zone, it is a touchback, and it is Ubley ball at their own 20-yard line. 30 seconds left, another kneel from the Ubley offense, and that will be your ball game. The Ubley Bearcats are your regional champions in Division 7 as the Ubley Bearcats defeat New Lothrop 22-13. The Greater Thumb Conference holds triumph over New Lothrop yet again. Quite the Saturday afternoon for us on the WLW Sports Network. As quite frankly, I figured going into that ball game we had about a 40% chance of winning for the Ubley Bearcats, and clearly the outcome 100% all orange and black.
Absolutely. You look at the spread, it was a 6-point favorite for New Lothrop. I don't know if the fact that they didn't get to play on their home field affected them at all. I'm not sure. I don't want to get into that too much, but it backfired on them. Chesaning was a fantastic host. They had an excellent facility.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the Ubley Bearcats were hungrier than New Lothrop was, and they played harder, and they were the team that stood tall, and they impressed us yet again.
We saw two different teams from Ubley. We saw a first half team that looked a little timid, trying to feel its way through that game. And we saw a completely different team there in the second half, and it had a lot to do with the coaching staff. I talked to Coach Kaufman after the game and said, what was the difference? And basically, he said, we challenged their manhood. And that was the PC version. There was a lot of expletives probably flying around in that locker room because they felt like the defensive effort just wasn't good enough for them in the first half. And if they duplicated that in the second half, Ubley was going to lose the game. They knew it. The kids knew it. And you see it. They pitched a shutout against a New Lothrop team that was averaging over 40 points a game. That's their lowest outcome since last year in 2015, I think, when they lost in the semifinals last year. So it's been a long time since New Lothrop was held to that kind of output offensively, and just a lot of that goes to the Ubley defense. I thought the coaches did a wonderful job adjusting, and the kids bought in, and you could just tell it was a different Ubley defensive unit. And eventually that defense led to a couple of offensive plays that ended up getting them the win.
And there's exactly where I was going to take what you were talking about. The defense absolutely stood tall. They were the reason this team won, and that's the reason this team's won all year long. But that turned into offense. They forced turnovers. They gave their offense more possessions. Special teams was excellent. What can you say about Jonathan Brandel kicking the ball, punting into the wind away from their returners? He had a kickoff where he kicked through the end zone for a touchback. You just don't see that from our local area teams, and they just played well in all three phases of the game, and the second half, they just turned on to this team that we had looked for all year long and dominated New Lothrop in the second half.
The Ubley Bearcat defense with 2 turnover of downs, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble recovery on the ball game. And Ubley only had 1 turnover, which was a fumble early on, which actually didn't result in any damage as they got the ball back, and actually they had a fumble and then they intercepted it as well.
Well, that's one thing I talked to Coach Kaufman for our preview story that we ran, and he said we cannot lose the turnover battle against a team like this. And when they coughed it up early, when they were going to drive in for a touchdown early in the red zone, and they coughed it up, I'm like, wow, that's the turnover that we hadn't seen Ubley commit all year long, especially at that point in the ball game. But then just a few plays later, Brandel comes up with that interception and changed the game again for them. And that was the start of maybe the best game Jonathan Brandel's ever had.
Well, in a game where you don't see New Lothrop all that often, we have a couple times now, but when you're not sure what this team's really going to bring and they go down and score, okay, now how is Ubley going to respond? They go right down the field. This is going to be a great game. Ubley's going to take it to them. It's going to be a high-scoring game. And all of a sudden, you cough up a fumble inside the 10-yard line, going in to score. The other side of the field just erupted. And I was like, man, if New Lothrop goes down and score now, the Bearcats can be down 2 scores. This is going to be a totally different game. And Brandel come up with a big interception, and that kept them in the game. But Ubley had no fear of them right down that first drive. They had their number. And that fumble, I thought, could have changed the game instantly in the first quarter. It did not. And fortunately, they got to halftime with minimal damage. And that's when, like you said, the game plan changed, whether it was a butt chewing or whether it was a new scripted plan. But they come out in the second half and they were, like you said, a totally different team, and they were ready to go, and they had enough time to take that victory and handily beat up on New Lothrop in the second half.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. If New Lothrop takes that fumble, they turn that into points, and it's a 2-touchdown game. That might be too much for Ubley to overcome at that point. Just all the momentum on New Lothrop's side and nothing going right for Ubley. A team that hadn't turned over the ball all year turns it over and it leads to points. Instead, Brando comes up with that play. But what I think really kept Ubley in this game is the fact that if you look up and down the roster, it's all seniors. These kids have been through the battles. They didn't get rattled. They were trailing, which is something that they hadn't been doing much this year at all. They trailed for all the first half.
38 minutes and 54 seconds.
Yeah, and all the third quarter, but they never panicked, and you never felt like Ubley was out of this game at any point. But it really comes back to Brando picking off that pass, and then not only picks off that pass to stop that momentum, but then they turn that around, and they turn that into points. And it's a 7-6 ball game. And then what that touchdown does for Ubley, and just says, it allows them to relax, get the nerves are out, and then they know they're in the ball game. They can score on this team. They can stop this team. And I think that whole sequence there, maybe 5 minutes of game time changed the whole game for Ubley.
There was two spots where I had that sinking feeling that Ubley was in trouble, and it was that Keller fumble inside the 10. We just talked about that. And when New Lothrop went down the field and scored easily the end of the first half, they took 4 minutes off the clock, and it was the perfect 4-minute offense. Went down the field, scored on a 1-yard run, and basically threw it down the lot, right over top, right through, right around, whatever you want to call it, right through that Ubley pass defense. And they went up that second score, and that extra point missed, and there was a little bit of fresh air there. But at that time, when they went down the field, that time I says, boy, they're going to get the ball to start second half. Man, you just had that feeling that New Lothrop kind of had it going again. And when Ubley stopped him in that start of the second half, then it felt like this is a game that the Bearcats are going to win.
Coach Kaufman touched on that after the game with me, and he said, we knew that they were getting the ball coming to start the second half, and they had already scored. If they take that opening possession of the second half and score, we're down 2. It changes everything. Again, another one of those most important possessions of the ball game was that opening possession for Ubley to stop them and not let New Lothrop score. Because if they go up 2 scores, then New Lothrop, they dictate pace. They take everything that Ubley might have been planning on, and it throws it out the window. Because Ubley down 2 scores, that ground and pound, you gotta hurry it up a little bit more, because you're running time.
You get out of rhythm a little bit. But the one thing that Bearcats and turnovers do not go together. They don't go in the same sentence. So obviously you want to take care of the football, but it was just so jaw-dropping to see them turn the ball over, because they just don't do it. And when they turned over the ball first, I said, boy, that could really be bad. But they secured everything up. It was just like the Bearcats of old. They took care of things. Awesome, led by an awesome defense. And mind you mentioned all the seniors. There's one non-senior that deserves a heck of a lot of credit. And Matt Mychek had a heck of a ball game. And I know we're going to get into it here, but
I think he's just dreaming.
Yeah, he has a bright future ahead of him, and he made the biggest throw of his career this weekend. That was a fantastic throw, but we'll get into that.
Ubley rushed the ball 49 times for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. Passed the ball, attempted 7 times, completed 2 of them for 79 total yards. 2 of those completions, 1 of them was for a touchdown. And, of course, just 3 penalties for 25 yards for Ubley. New Lothrop had a slight edge in overall offense by 22 yards. They rushed for 200 yards and through the air for 128 yards, although New Lothrop had 1 fumble and 2 interceptions as well. Ubley was led by Jonathan Brandel with 26 carries, 121 yards, and a touchdown. Matt Mychek, 9 carries for 61 yards. And Derek Brown, 10 carries for 28 yards and a score. Matt Mychek through the air, 2 for 7 for 79 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Brandel brought in the big 58-yard reception for the score. And Nathan Keller, the other reception for 21 yards.
What I loved was that call on 3rd and 19. Ubley calls a timeout, scrap the play. Brandel brings it to Coach Kaufman's attention. Hey, the safeties are cheating. We got this. Just throw the ball, and I'm going to catch it. As long as it's anywhere near him, he was going to catch it. That's the play of the game, the call of the game. Instead of Ubley doing the traditional, milk the clock, force a timeout, they went for it all. They went for the win. They were there to win, and that single play summed it up, and it won them the game. And you can't discount the 2-point conversion, which made it a 2-point game. But that whole sequence there, that's what won the game. Ubley came there to win, and they played like it.
Ubley scored two big touchdowns. Their first one of the game on 4th down and 1. It was 4th and 1, and we were like, man, they're going to go for it here. They're obviously going to go for it. And Jonathan Brandel breaks free for 26 yards and scores a touchdown. And that absolutely had hearts racing. That was a phenomenal play, only to be outdone by a third and extremely long, third and a country mile. And what was very unique is New Lothrop called timeout before that to stop the clock because they wanted to save as much time as they could because they were still behind in this game. After the timeout, Ubley couldn't get set up. They didn't have the right personnel. They were lost. The time ran out. They had to call timeout again. And then in between that, maybe they did see something they didn't like. But they had to turn around and burn one of their timeouts, their last timeout, which are invaluable at this time, to put out a different play when they've seen that defense. And lo and behold, it comes back to senior running back Jonathan Brandel saying, Coach, this is what we got to do. Throw it to me. And maybe he didn't exactly mean him, but when they drew up play action, and Mychek threw that football, and from our spot, Clark, when you looked out there was no black or gray jerseys anywhere, and nothing but Bearcats running, and Jonathan Brandel caught that ball. It was just fitting because he played a fantastic football game. I can't say that enough, and I can't credit enough to anybody on this Bearcat team, but without Jonathan Brandel, this team was nowhere on Saturday. He scored on a running play, a passing play, and he had 2 interceptions on defense. He was everywhere. And he played an excellent football game.
The Ubley Bearcats now take on Pewamo, Westphalia on this coming Saturday on the 19th in Mount Pleasant High School in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And you'll hear that game on Sports Radio 102.1. Coverage starts at 12:10 p.m. with kickoff at 1 p.m. this coming Saturday. It's time for a short break. This past segment of the Strong Side was presented by Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine. Life is painful enough, no need to feel in your back too. That's Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine, just west of the light in Bad Axe, and a second location in Sandusky. Left side or right side, you're listening to The Strong Side on Sports Radio 102.1. This segment being brought to you by Randy's Hunting Center in Bad Axe. For your hunting and fishing needs, make it Randy's Hunting Center in Bad Axe, where the bucks are big, the tails are long, and all the deer are four-legged. Give them a call at 269-GUNS. And guess who's back in the state championship for the second time since 2012? The Deckerville Eagles. They took out Tri-Unity Christian 36-6, and Deckerville got the scoring right away in 3:22 in the first quarter as Austin Fritsch broke through for a 70-yard run. That's 7-0 for the first score. The Patel 2-point conversion was good, made it 8-0. In the second quarter, Deckerville strikes again. Austin Fritsch with his second score of the day, 8:27 left in the first half. This time a 17-yard run. 2-point conversion from Patello on the run was good. It's 16-0 Deckerville. Before the half is over, 3:45 before the half, Austin Fritsch with his third score of the day, a 24-yard run. The 2-point conversion failed, and so it's 22-0 at halftime. In the third quarter, 7:19, the first possession of the half for Deckerville. Austin Fritsch with his fourth and final touchdown of the day, this time an 85-yard scramble, and a 2-point conversion from Patello is good. It's 30-0 Deckerville. The next possession, Brandon Patello with an 85-yard run for Deckerville makes it 36-0 as the 2-point conversion fails, and that would be the score with a running clock all the way until 23 seconds left in the fourth quarter as Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian's quarterback Sherrod with a 30-yard run finally makes it 36-6, and Tri-Unity finally gets on the board as basically time is expiring, squandering away the shutout for Deckerville, but they don't really care at this point. They won the game, and they are back in the state championship for the first time since 2012.
This just in, guys. Austin Fritsch just scored again, just so you guys know.
Oh, no kidding.
But, wow, what a game, Paul. I mean, Austin Fritsch, obviously a man possessed. We don't get to see a lot of these Deckerville Eagles play. They don't play a full game. They have run the gym out of everybody. They have beaten everybody so bad this year, and it just goes to show how well this team is. There's a lot of seniors. This whole team played last year, quarterback, running back, defense. Everything is like a well-oiled machine right now. The defense is phenomenal. And Powers, we know Powers is coming, but the question is, can this offense keep up? And I think they're smiling right now. This offense is ready to go.
You saw just a fraction of Deckerville's offense on Saturday. I'm telling you right now, no passes attempted. Now, the game that I saw Deckerville play against Mayville, they had 3 passes attempted. It was 3 for 3 for 3 touchdowns and over 150 yards passing. Patello can pass the ball. They have a lot in this playbook that they just quite frankly didn't have to show. They're going to have to empty the playbook against Powers North. But the other thing that sticks out to me, that jumps out at me, other than the no passes attempted, 2 fumbles lost. Now, Deckerville could get away with that against a team like Tri-Unity. Tri-Unity just not up to that level that Deckerville is at. Deckerville cannot afford 2 turnovers against a team like Powers North, who can convert those into points very quickly. So ball possession and control is going to be so important when Deckerville faces Powers North. You cannot Powers North is going to have their opportunities. You cannot give them extra opportunities. This is a team that's scoring 60 points a game. I think probably around 800 points this season, over 900 last season. It's an offense like we've never seen before, so you cannot give it extra possessions.
I think this defense is up for the challenge. The other thing I seen, besides the fact that Deckerville never even attempted a pass, is their quarterback Patello is very mobile, and he only attempted 4 rushing attempts in the whole game. Now, mind you, he did go for 75 yards and a touchdown on those 4 little carries that he had, but he's another dangerous weapon that they have at their disposal at any time, and they didn't even show him that much either. So the secret here for Deckerville is Patello is the guy that's not being utilized much because they don't have to. You can hand it off to your Adrian Peterson style running back and hand it to him 20 times and run for 260 yards. You don't have to show all your weapons in your arsenal.
I think Deckerville has the advantage in that. I don't know what tapes Powers North is going to get of Deckerville, but I'm going to tell you that they're not going to see a ton of offense from Deckerville as far as what Deckerville possesses in their playbook. But on the flip side of that, when Coach Brown and his staff are breaking down Powers North, they don't hide what they're doing. You don't score 70 points a game and think that you're not showing a lot. I mean, Powers North, you get a couple tapes on them, you know what they're going to do. I think Deckerville could possibly surprise Powers North a little bit, and because a game like this, you rushed it 39 times for 423 yards, no passes. Powers North is like, well, we don't really have to worry about the pass. Well, let me tell you what, they're going to have to worry about the pass. They're going to have to respect the pass. I think play action is going to be huge for Deckerville.
Well, when you get to this phase of the game, coaching gets more important as the weeks go on, and it's never going to be more important than it is coming up this weekend. So we'll see which team has shown the most and which team has the ability to dig a little deeper when they need it. We know Deckerville can, but they haven't all year. We said that about the Ubly Bearcats. We're going to say it about Deckerville Eagles. Just because you know you can throw doesn't mean that you're going to be able to when the time comes. We always questioned Ubly at some point, you're going to catch up somebody where you're going to need to throw the ball. Well, Mychek made 2 very important passes in that last game, but he had 5 incompletions too. It's not necessarily a great percentage. It's 5 plays that went for 0 yards. But so I wonder, can Deckerville do that the same? I expect that they will be able to, but there's a lot of pass catchers that are going to run routes that haven't caught a lot of passes this year. So hopefully that doesn't affect them next week.
This game between Powers North and Deckerville is going to be the classic what happens. What happens when Powers North goes against a defense that's finally going to fight back? Because Powers North has carved a path of destruction through the 8-player ranks for the last 2 years. Nobody has come within 20 points of this team. They have just annihilated teams. What's going to happen to Deckerville when they face an offense that fights back? They have, quite frankly, have not faced great offenses. This Tri-Unity offense was the best offense they faced. They did a very good job against it, but Tri-Unity and Powers North are light years apart. So it's a classic what if. Who's going to break first, the defense or the offense? I don't know. I'm very intrigued. I'm glad we have this matchup because it just the differences on both sides, a great offense and a stout defense. You just can't draw it up any better.
You can't, but when you look at it, Deckerville, nobody's come within 20 points of Deckerville this year either. So both teams have been in games where they've been out front a lot, and I don't think either team gets very far in front of the other one in this game because Deckerville's defense won't allow it, and Power's offense is going to move the football, but can they get in the end zone is the question. So it's is it the great defenses that win championships or great offenses? Most of the time, you'll take the great defense. But this offense, as you mentioned, Paul, is phenomenal. And we're going to see it firsthand Friday night. But we'll see it. So that asks the other question, is Powers North defense as good as what Deckerville's offense is? That may be the key that matters the most. And we know Deckerville's offense is very potent.
We'll touch on that in a couple minutes.
As Austin Fritsch led the way for Deckerville on 23 carries for 263 yards. That's a pretty good average for 4 touchdowns on the day. Brandon Patello with 4 carries for 75 yards. And a touchdown, Wade Saldana with 13 carries for 60 yards. Hanley got in the books with 1 carry for 8 yards. And Chase Patello with 1 carry for 7 yards. The entire rushing attack for Deckerville was their entire offensive attack on the day for 423 yards rushing. Tri-Unity, well, I think they are the first team this season to break Deckerville on rushing over the triple digits. 25 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown, and they threw for 120, but they were still less than 50% in completions, 14 for 30, and Deckerville picked off 2 passes on that day. And Deckerville actually had 7 penalties for 55 yards, so a little concerning there as well. Regardless, though, Deckerville is 11-0 on the season after playing only an 8 games regular season, and they're taking on Powers North Central High this coming Friday in the state championship for 8-player football in Greenville, Michigan. And we are doing double duty this weekend with Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and Doug Cole, our Director of Sports Information, as we will be broadcasting live the 8-player state championship from Greenville, Michigan. Coverage will start at 6:05 p.m. with kickoff at 7 p.m. from Greenville, Michigan. Of course, that game on your home for high school football, the WLEW Sports Network, Deckerville against Powers North Central. It's time for a quick break. It is 7:36.5 on Sports Radio 102.1. Left side or right side, you're listening to The Strong Side on Sports Radio 102.1, home with the WLEW Sports Network. Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and from the Here and Daily Tribune, Paul P. Adams. As this segment being brought to you by Thumb National Bank and Trust, going wherever you are with online banking and a mobile app designed just for you. Thumb National Bank and Trust, locations in Pigeon, Kaysville, Cass City, 2 locations in Bay City, and now Uno locations in the axe that is bad. Pewamo, Westphalia, and Traverse City St. Francis squared off, and they are taking on the winner of the Ubly Bearcats. And Pewamo, Westphalia pulls one out late for the victory. In the first quarter, Traverse City St. Francis scores with 46 seconds left in the first quarter. And Mlizovic with a 1-yard run.
Bless you.
I was practicing this afternoon. Let's hear. Malchovic, we'll go with that. With a 1-yard run, the PAT was good. Makes it 7-0 Traverse City St. Francis. In the second quarter, PW with the next possession, a 74-yard drive, capped off with a Jared Smith 3-yard run, 7-7 tie. The following possession, the Gladiators of Traverse City on a pass to Hegewald makes it Traverse City by 7 points, 14-7. And with 14 seconds left in the first half, Pewamo, Westphalia brings out the field goal unit, and Alex Thalen hits a 39-yard field goal with about a yard to spare with the wind at his back. Makes it 14-10. Traverse City by 4 at the half. Third quarter, absolutely no scoring. In the fourth quarter, Pewamo, Westphalia finally breaks through with a Jared Smith 12-yard run, and that proved to be the difference maker as they win by 3 points, 17-14. Pewamo, Westphalia takes out the number 1 team in Division 7, the Traverse City St. Francis Gladiators, to improve to 12-0 on the season and to take on the Ubly Bearcats in the state semifinals. Now, before we get into anything, Pewamo, Westphalia's leading rusher, Jared Smith, was limited to just 88 yards in this ball game. Pretty good day for anyone. However, Jared Smith, this is just the second time in his 4 years on varsity that he was held to less than 100 yards. He was averaging 210 a game and 11.8 a carry. And Jared Smith was held to 88 yards for Pewamo Westphalia, and they still won over St. Francis of Traverse City.
Let me just tell you a little story before we get into the game. I'm interviewing Jonathan Brandel, and it comes up that Pewamo Westphalia won. You should have seen the look on Jonathan Brandel's face. It was just a look of pure joy. St. Francis, a lot of times when they play our teams and they play teams around the state, they win the mental battle. They win the game before they even hit the field. I think Ubley is rejuvenated. Just the fact that they don't even have to think about St. Francis. I just could not believe the look on his face. Just absolutely elated that they didn't have to see St. Francis.
Well, take it a step further, and when we talked with Coach Kaufman after the game, he says, yeah, we got some homework to do now. He says, Traverse City St. Francis, you can find tape on them anywhere. He says, but everybody just assumed Traverse City St. Francis was going to roll through their side, and all of a sudden they didn't. And now Pewamo Westphalia is the team that Ubley's doing their homework on, and Pewamo Westphalia is thinking the same thing. Boy, we can find tape on New Lothrop anywhere, but we got to find that team in the Thumb now again. So it's going to be a fun matchup, I think. I really hope that that works in the favor of the Ubley Bearcats, that maybe Pewamo wasn't expecting to be in this game, and Ubley can take advantage of that.
We're talking Pewamo Westphalia is your state runner-up from last year, and I made it a point to watch this game last year because I heard about Jared Smith, and I wanted a chance to see him. I didn't know if I'd ever have a chance to cover him. Now I'm going to have that chance. But he's the real deal, and you got to feel like if you're St. Francis, you held this kid going in. If you tell St. Francis you're going to hold him to 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, they're like, we'll take it. We'll win by 14. So it does show me that there's a little bit more to Pewamo Westphalia than Jared Smith, but this kid's a stud with a capital S. I mean, 3,200 yards last year. You got to imagine he's probably around those same numbers this year. I mean, we're talking a special talent here. But this was an upset. Make no mistake about it. St. Francis was heavily favored to go to the state championship game, and they didn't even get to a state semifinal.
Jared Smith with 31 carries, 88 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last year, Jared Smith rushed for 3,250 yards and 53 touchdowns, and that is the first player in state history to surpass 3,200 or 3,000 yards in general, and also over 50 touchdowns in a season. Pewamo Westphalia returns 9 two-way starters this season, and they are proving that they are a force to be reckoned with, but the Ubley Bearcats will be up for the challenge. Of course, Ubley and Pewamo Westphalia facing off this Saturday at 1 p.m. in Mount Pleasant, a game you'll hear on Sports Radio 102.1. The other game you'll hear on Sports Radio 102.1 will be Friday night, as the Deckerville Eagles will take on Powers North Central in the 8-man championship, and we will be there with you every step of the way. Powers North Central won 62-22 over Pickford, and it was 16-6 at the end of the first quarter. Actually, Pickford came within 2 points with 6 minutes left in that first quarter, but then it was all Powers, and they scored 4 more times before the half was over to make it 40-6 Powers, and then 2 more touchdowns in the third quarter made it 56-6 before Pickford was able to score again in the fourth quarter. A Lamo 3-yard run brought them back 56-14. Powers responds with a 68-yard themselves from Schaaf, making it 62-14, and then Pickford with the last score of the night. Story with a 47-yard pass to Eddington makes it 62-22. Powers gives up over almost 400 yards to Pickford in this ballgame. 189 yards rushing and 193 yards passing. So, looks like Deckerville should be able to move the ball on them.
I don't think there's any question, but on the other side of that, look at the balance on offense for Powers North. 268 yards rushing, 242 yards passing. Yeah, when you can accumulate those numbers, you're willing to give up some yards on defense. So it's just going to be a matter of if Deckerville can slow this team down and just make them think a little bit and maybe even take a lead on Powers North, because I'm going to venture to guess Powers North hasn't trailed too much in this season, as Deckerville hasn't either. So I think Deckerville early on, they're going to have to weather the storm, and if they are able to weather the storm, put some pressure on Powers North. But what you got to know for Powers North, Jason Wittens, their quarterback.
Wittens.
Yeah, Wittens. He is the 2-time reigning Associated Press 8-player player of the year. kid's an absolute dual threat in every sense of the word. And then you got Bob Kleinman, who is a nice complimentary back. He had 4 touchdowns, 120 yards on 7 carries. So that is a great 1-2 punch. And in 8-player football, when you have one great athlete, as Tri-Unity did, that can get you to a semifinal. When you have 2 studs like this, it can win you a state championship and bring you to the verge of another.
I come back to you with Brandon Patello and Austin Fritsch. I think there's 2 stud athletes on the offensive side of the football that could obviously compete with them offensively. But I don't know how Powers North is on defense, but there's a couple guys on that Deckerville defense that have the ability to be some of the best players in the area, period, just on defense alone. But the scary part for me for the Deckerville Eagles is 8 completions for 242 yards. They are a big play offense, and they are obviously high percentage, but Deckerville hasn't seen a team that can truly pass the ball really, really well. So not only has Deckerville not passed the ball much themselves, we know they can do it, but pass defense in 8-player football isn't as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of space to cover. So that, to me, is going to be the difference in slowing down this offense. I think up front with the linebacking core, they can slow down the running game. They're very good at reading how these running backs are going to attack them. But it's when the play action comes and those linebackers step up for that run that all of a sudden they can they're vulnerable deep. And that's when those secondary guys are going to be on one-on-one coverage or in a zone on an island by themselves. Can they make enough plays to slow down those big pass plays that Powers North is going to try to provide?
Those 2 studs you mentioned on defense for Deckerville, Reese Bays-Kramer, linebacker, Austin Spatzel, defensive lineman. What those guys will do will put pressure on the quarterback as far as making him uncomfortable. But those guys aren't going to drop back in coverage. So this is going to put pressure on the other defensive guys that we don't say too much about for Deckerville.
And, of course, Powers North Central and Deckerville facing off in the 8-player state championship this Friday night. Kickoff at 7 p.m. Coverage starting at 6:05 p.m. on Sports Radio 102.1 with Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and Doug Cole, our Director of Sports Information. It's time for our last break. This past segment was brought to you by McCormick Motors of Pigeon, home of the honest sale. See Marion Shetler or Alec McCormick today and see why all roads lead to McCormick Motors of Pigeon. Week number 13 of our broadcast season is upon us on the WLEW Sports Network. Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen from the Here and Daily Tribune. It's Paul P. Adams. The 8-player state championship this Friday, and then, of course, the state semifinals this Saturday. Double coverage this week on Sports Radio 102.1. We'll have Deckerville and Powers North Central Friday night at 6:05 p.m. Game kickoff at 7 p.m. for the 8-player state championship. Then on Saturday, we have the Ubly Bearcats taking on Pewamo, Westphalia. Pewamo, Westphalia. Second best cheer in the state of Michigan. Pewamo, Pewamo, Westphalia. Behind HARBOR.
How did I know that was coming?
Harbor Beach. And of course, they're taking on Powers North Central on Friday night. The Ubly Bearcats taking on Pewamo, Westphalia. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, and I just want to mention 2 other Thumb teams still alive, and this is a great time to be a Thumb football fan. We have Millington in the state semifinals. They made up a 20-0 deficit in the third quarter, won 22-20, and then Frankenmuth went into Ithaca, knocked off the Yellow Jackets over there, something that just does not happen to Ithaca in the playoffs. So 4 Thumb teams left, 2 that we cover. It's a great time to be alive, guys.
Sure is, and I get back to the games that we're going to be calling, Clark. I can't wait to see that venue over there in Greenville. I can't wait to see that for the first time up close and personal and call a game from there. Rooting for our Deckerville Eagles, of course, and then we get to go over to Mount Pleasant for the Ubly Bearcat game. So it's going to be a good weekend.
Should be indeed. The Ubly Bearcats and Pewamo, Westphalia. On the other side of the bracket, in Division 7 is Cassopolis and Detroit Loyola. So the good old Catholics of Detroit Loyola taking on Cassopolis, and then the Ubly Bearcats and Pewamo, Westphalia, the only 4 remaining teams in Division 7. In the 8-player division, we've got Deckerville and Powers North Central, and that's all she wrote. Should be a great. I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy a nice doubleheader. It's a lot of work, and we'll be on the road a lot west of I-75 the whole weekend. And I'll have to miss the Michigan State Ohio State game, but I'll survive.
You'll get through it,
especially this season. And so we'll have. I have confidence. I really think Deckerville is going to be able to move the ball on Powers North Central more than Power Central is going to be able to move the ball on Deckerville.
Powers North has given up more points this year than they did last year. So obviously, I think graduation hurt that defense a little bit. The fact that they gave up it was over 400 yards, almost 400 yards to Pickford, I think that says a lot. Deckerville's a better team than Pickford. Deckerville has the best defense in the state, and I think an offense to really complement their defense. So I think it's a team unlike Powers North has seen during this 2 years run, but likewise, Powers North is a team unlike anything Deckerville's ever seen this year or maybe ever in 8-player. This team is an absolute monster offensively. You don't go back-to-back seasons scoring over 800 points. That you don't fluke your way to that. So this is an offense that you definitely need to be aware of. They're going to score points against Deckerville. I think Deckerville, in order to win, Deckerville's going to have to score in the 40s to win this game. They're just, I don't think, going to be able to hold Powers North, to 20 points or so. I think Powers North is going to get into the 30s.
I agree with you. I do think they can get into the 30s. They can keep Powers North in the 30s, and I don't think getting to 30 will be an issue for the Deckerville Eagles. I do think that they have the ability to score on anyone, and I think this defense is going to cause more havoc. The big thing is in this game, where does those turnovers come into play? We've seen Deckerville turn it over twice. If they do that, Paul, we might as well pack up and go. They're going to be in deep trouble. But if Powers North is the team that turns it over once, early in that game, look out. Deckerville could go up early, but it's a game that I'm really looking forward to. I know you've been beating that dead horse of yours for weeks, and now I get to
have a name at least or anything?
No.
Well, we can come up with a name, can't we?
I could come up with a name. But Ford Field, that's where this game should be played. Oh, there you go. There's another dead horse for you.
There we go. He's back.
Them all.
Same old guy. And then obviously the Albany Bearcats, we get to go see a game at Mount Pleasant, and a familiar team in Pewamo, Westphalia. I get to see them one more time.
Let's see that. Pewamo, Westphalia faced off with
2013?
Harbor Beach in 2013 or 14. I can't remember what season it was.
Can't remember which season, but
I think it was 14. They all run together after a while, but we're looking forward to it. We've got the Deckerville Eagles taking on Powers North Central Jets on Friday night. Coverage starts at 6:05 p.m. and kickoff at 7 p.m. the 8-player state championship. And, of course, then on Saturday, our Division 7 state semifinal matchup between your Ubly Bearcats and Pewamo Westphalia Pirates taking place in Mount Pleasant High School in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, where it's not so mountainous and sometimes pleasantous, with Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and Doug Cole. On behalf of the entire crew of the Strongside, Mr. Paul P. Adams from the Here Daily Tribune. In-game analysis of the WLB Sports Network is Dave Hansen, and I'm Clark Ramsey, producer and host of this broadcast. We hope you enjoyed yourself tonight. We certainly did, and we have a great week ahead of us as the state semifinals in Division 7 and the state championship in 8-player division. We'll see you, and we'll be with you every step of the way on the WLEW Sports Network, your home for high school football, Sports Radio 102.1, and streaming live and worldwide at WLEWsports.com. Have a good night.